himself, Brushy puts his head down. Scully's with him. He won't in. He goes up though, chases this one now. It's outside the 22, the ball bounces up and Jesse has it. Genius! Conversation Terminator is in. The United States have defeated Scotland for the first time in history. Hello and welcome to 10 Minutes with legend Chris Wyles, born in Stanford, Connecticut, but spending most of his time in London, England. Shrekkie, or known as Chris Wyles, played 54 times for the US Eagles from 2007 to 2015, including 3 Rugby World Cups. In the UK, he represented the legendary Saracens more than 250 times and 4 Premiership titles, 2 European Champions Cup titles. But let's go back. The high-flying legend, when I first met you, you popped over from England to America for the Sevens World Series camp in 2007. Tell me how you ended up in that position, pal, and your first roommate on tour.
Firstly, mate, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to see your face. It's a pleasure to see you speaking so quickly again. Actually, no, hear you speaking so quickly again. Listen, mate, when I turned up, how that came about was I was playing for Northampton Saints. It was a pretty tough season, and the US got in contact with me and said, would you be interested in getting involved with the view to potentially playing in the 2007 World Cup? And the first step along that journey was Al Caravelli reaching out to me and saying, come along and see how you do in the Sevens camp. And I walked in pretty fresh, first roommate, Dallen Stanford. What an introduction to Sevens rugby to get you in my face, in my grill I think we were in Florida, if I remember, for a week. A couple of things. Firstly, how neat and nerdy you were. I was super surprised about that. Again, how quick you spot. I couldn't really even understand what you were saying. You were speaking so quickly. And just generally actually having a good time. You welcomed me, and then just experiencing Al's first ever camp before going to Hong Kong. It was a pretty interesting experience. But it was great fun, great group of lads as well.
We really had a laugh, didn't we? So tell us how you got your nickname Shrek.
Pretty obvious, isn't it? Pretty obvious. Just stare at me.
Next.
You actually you were on the mic at the Hong Kong club, the US
Yes,
Hong Kong club?
That's right.
That's right. You were on the mic, and because you had the mic, you just decided that you were going to just start spitting out nicknames of all the players, and it was the first time I ever heard Shrek, and it was. And you know what? It's the classic example of I shouldn't have got annoyed. I shouldn't have reacted, and I was called Shrek for the rest of my career. And my wife thinks I'm beautiful, whereas obviously I'm not.
Well, Princess Fiona is beautiful. You're right. But Shrekkie, we certainly love you. We love that. Let's quickly go. Favorite memory playing on the Sevens World Series?
I would say it was our tournament in San Diego where we faced Argentina in the semi-final, and we narrowly lost. But our performance in that, I don't know. Obviously, the Sevens guys have gone on to bigger and better things, led by Mike Friday, and have done incredibly well. But for us at that time, where we were as a group, to get to that point at the San Diego Sevens in front of a home crowd, at Petco Park, it was just an amazing atmosphere. It was a really special experience. Those memories, I think, are the defining points of my career, and I think probably most of ours, being on that Sevens tour, getting to play and really work hard with your mates. But yeah, the San Diego experience when we got to the semi-final, and I think if we had won that game against Argentina, we may have well won the whole tournament. It was a really special moment. It was a culmination of a lot of hard work under Al and the group that we had. Yeah,
that's right. Speaking about Al Caravelli, the coach that basically resurrected the US Sevens program, inviting a lot of players and players like yourself and Todd Clever and Taku Ngwenya were going to do great things in the rugby world. But Al was quite a strict coach, and we had laughs underneath him. Any memories come to mind about him being quite rigid?
Well, do you know what? I've really enjoyed reflecting on my career, and I think Al, a lot of credit has to go to him in the way his attitude towards, I think, the professional aspect of Sevens. I wouldn't say he was, necessarily ahead of the game, because I know that other coaches were pretty strict, especially on fitness. But he was definitely driving the standards within US rugby and even on the circuit. And huge credit has to go to him to how he reinvented or at least put US Sevens back into the competitive mix. So I've got huge amounts of respect for him, and also we heard stories of the working career. He's a seriously motivated, intelligent, articulate guy. But you're right. He was I mean, it'd be funny to go have a beer with him now, because some of the stories and some of the things that we had a ban on chocolate, didn't we? So you, Guppy, and Toddy, and some of the other boys would be having cups of tea and just smashing chocolate as many Cadbury's chocolates as we could find after a training session. It was like that was the most dangerous thing we were doing on a sevens floor. It doesn't sound that exciting, does it? But at the time, it was like the best thing we could do. And then doing push-ups on the plane and all kinds of weird and wonderful things that Al got up to. But ultimately, I think he actually did push the pace and put us in a good place as a sevens squad.
He really did. I actually saw him at the Los Angeles Sevens recently, and we definitely caught up, and it was great to see him. He's just a wonderful person, and definitely some funny stories, and we'll get into those later when we do the full podcast. But let's switch across to talking about dream jobs, and obviously me being a non-stop talker and talking about rugby as a commentator these days is certainly up my alley. For yourself, pal, would you say drinking with your good mates at Wolfpack would be a dream job? I mean, you've done brilliantly there, my friend.
It really is. I mean, me and Al wanted to get into it because we need hospitality business with social by nature, and that's a lot of the joy we took out of rugby and professional sport, was actually being together with your mates and having working hard on the pitch, working unbelievably hard on the pitch, but having a good time off it. And Wolfpack, it's obviously come with its learning curves and its challenges, but yeah, ultimately at the heart of what we do, it's trying to bring people together and have a beer together and enjoy each other's company. So it really is a dream come true, in the sense that we've got it to a position that we can be full time and working for the business and growing that.
Tell us about, firstly, I must be the only person that has a Wolfpack. You can't see it right now on the screen, but I have a Wolfpack glass that I managed to nip in the bag last time I was there. What's the biggest night you've had at the Queen's Park venue? Because I was there one time, and Rugby World Cup winner John Smith was there, just having a couple of cheeky ones with you. I mean, there must be some good moments.
I mean, you know what? Through, again, touching on the rugby environment and how close everyone is, whenever our network or mates come into town, they want to come and have a beer and see what we're all about, which is amazing. So yeah, John Smith was there on that day. We've had the whole Sarri squad there celebrating, Premiership wins and European Champions Cup wins. We've had some pretty big nights there. When we first started out, when we first opened the bar, I think we definitely fell into that category of being operators that enjoyed drinking at our establishments more than we actually did making a profit. Which apparently in the trade is quite a consistent thing. So we don't get me wrong, we've had a good time, but now we're getting a bit more serious and trying to understand the processes. But there's been some incredible nights out. I'm trying to think who else has come through there. Our bar, I mean, this might not mean too much to the American crowd, but our bar is in Queen's Park, which is a kind of quite a decent area in London. So we've had some fairly famous people go through there. But yeah, I put it this way. I'm not going to tell you every night out we've had in that place, but it's been pretty full on.
I bet it has, but I can't wait to share some with you there once everything clears. Pal, final question, put you on the spot here. We mentioned your decorated career on the field. Is there one moment that stands out above everything else on the field?
Genuinely, I'm not just saying this because I mentioned it earlier. I think the moments that day in San Diego at Petco Park. Okay, you were involved in this one. The try that I scored against France, because it was early on in the career, because it was we had pushed so hard to be a competitive sevens team. That was for me personally, probably it's a bit selfish because that was for me personally, we beat France in that game, but that was incredible in front of a home crowd. I mean, you know what the Petco Park atmosphere, the weather in San Diego, the fact we're in a baseball stadium, the fact that we're the underdogs, the fact that the crowd is behind us, and then to beat the Frogs. I mean, it was a pretty cool moment. And then I'd say on top of that, winning the Premiership with Saracens for for the first time in 2011 was a huge moment for Saracens, the club, the organisation, and it was justification to what we were trying to build as a club.
That's amazing, Shreki. Brilliant memories. I'm actually going to get the audio from that game and put it up here when you scored that brilliant try against France. Listen, Paul, we'll get you properly on a longer chat on our podcast called Rugby Hive later. But thanks for stopping by, man, and getting rounded like a parked car on the Rugby Corner. This was 10 minutes with Chris Wyles. Keep the change.
Keep the change, man. It's like Alessandro Tulane running over Wyles again.
Cheers, you buddy, legend.
Except it's the Squani.
Fills in half back. Now it comes wide once again. Palafau. French. Oh, just set off that tackle. It's going to be Chris Wyles over the posts. This could give the USA victory.
Crowd on their feet.
Have a look at this.
Dallen Stanford holds it up for Chris Wyles. Draws in a couple of defenders. Chris Wyles really strong in that tackle.
Forget load shedding. He's a